Unraveling the film's threads, Drami helps you see beyond the screen. Hello, global film explorers. Welcome again to Dramagico. I'm your host, Drami. Forget the hopping vampires and comedic relief you might associate with classic Hong Kong cinema. What if the undead brought only utter despair? We're diving deep into the lore of the Jiangshi. Picture a reanimated corpse, part zombie, part vampire, steeped in Chinese folklore and dark Taoist magic. From a producer of the legendary Ju-on, The Grudge, Takashi Shimizu. This bleak vision isn't it your grandpa's ghost story. Today, we dissect the chilling beauty and cultural specters of Juno Mac's stunning directorial debut, Rigor Mortis. It reimagines a genre, leaving you with chills that linger long after the credits roll. Stick around as we decode how its masterful craft creates such profound dread. Alex, once a movie star, left his bleak home village at 13. He became a leading man at 16. His early life was undoubtedly glamorous, but now, middle-aged, and down on his luck, he chooses to return to where it all began, the place where his dreams started. Fallen from grace, he arrives with just a few bags. He silently enters the elevator of the notoriously rundown public housing estate he once called home. Just as the elevator doors are about to close, a little boy with white hair and an unnaturally pale complexion quietly steps in. Watching the boy randomly press the buttons, Alex, his heart heavy with despair, simply feels that in this decaying building, nothing strange seems surprising anymore. During the elevator ride, faint sounds drift in, the laughter of children of the same age, muffled cries, and miserable weeping, accompanied by this eerie little boy. Alex arrives at the door of his new rented apartment, numbered 1442. At this moment, the building manager, Mr. Owen, hurries over to open the door for him. Having managed the building for most of his life, Mr. Owen has watched families come and go for decades. He knows the ins and outs of every household in this building, but this usually cheerful Mr. Owen, surprisingly, taps gently on the closed door twice before opening it. After opening the door, he nervously peers inside, quickly scanning the room clearly. He suspects something unclean might reside within. Just then, Alex takes out a banknote from his pocket and hands it to Mr. Owen, saying he might need his help often in the future. Enter a house. Greet the people, enter a temple, worship the spirits. Mr. Owen habitually mutters these old sayings, while taking out incense sticks from his pocket and lighting them, still murmuring to himself. Mr. Owen turns and leaves. He even carefully places the 3 lit incense sticks on the ground, outside Alex's apartment door. Inside, Alex is unaware of these rituals happening outside. He just quietly unpacks, taking out the old costume he wore in his Jiangshi movie days, hanging it up. He looks around the room, filled with objects symbolizing his glorious past. Listening to his son's familiar yet distant voice on the phone, he recalls the sweet moments they shared. But the image shifts the next second. The memory of a warm family dinner table is suddenly stained with horrifying, fresh blood. Snapping out of his reminiscence, Alex's eyes fill with resolve. No more hesitation. He forcefully kicks away the stool beneath him, preparing to end his life by hanging. In this critical moment between life and death, Alex's past flashes before his eyes like a rapid slideshow. But strangely, a white sheet laid flat on the floor begins to slowly ripple, revealing the faint outline of a human figure. Beneath it, wisps of smoke curl around it, and spots of blood gradually seep through the white cloth. Before he can blink, the sheet suddenly drops back to the floor, and an eerie, gray smoke rapidly rises and possesses Alex's hanging body. Instantly, Alex's eyes turn vacant and bloodshot. His body contorts unnaturally, turning upside down. He floats limply in the air, making bizarre, jerky movements faster than one could react. The locked apartment door is suddenly smashed open. A figure rushes in, leaping into the air with surprising agility. He wields a tool, slashing through the rope Alex used to hang himself. Once inside, this person immediately forms hand seals and chants incantations. Clearly skilled in Taoist exorcism techniques, Alex, obviously possessed by a powerful spirit, is now beyond reason. He lunges fiercely at this unexpected arrival. The Taoist priest, Rick reacts quickly, leaning back to dodge. Both men crash heavily onto the cold floor. In the ensuing struggle, Rick manages to pin the possessed Alex in front of a mirror. Under the mirror's inherent power to repel evil, its surface cracks loudly, shattering. And in the broken reflection, the terrifying image of a female ghost in red is revealed. Instantly, the ghost seems horrified by its own gruesome posthumous appearance. It shrieks and leaves Alex's body. Alex, no longer supported, slumps heavily against the wall, unconscious. At this point, the neighbors, alerted by the sounds of the fight, have all gathered outside. Alex slowly regains consciousness under everyone's gaze, somewhat returning to clarity. But being possessed by a powerful ghost always leaves a mark. Suddenly, Alex uncontrollably vomits a large amount of black, foul liquid he stubbornly, silently puts on the sunglasses he wore during his movie star days. However, no one in the crowd notices. At the very back, a man dressed in black is staring intently at the Taoist priest, Rick. His eyes seem filled with a complex envy. Rick disperses the curious onlookers, but he deliberately walks over to the man in black, pausing beside him briefly, and the man quickly masks his expression, offering an admiring and friendly smile. The shocking drama of life and death temporarily concludes as the sun sets and night descends. Alex sits quietly in his room, looking at old photographs. Lost again in memories of past glories. However, he's drawn by noise from outside his apartment. He slowly walks to the door outside. A woman with disheveled hair is anxiously peering towards his room. Alex, slightly curious, also slowly opens his door, but when the woman looks back again, peering into Alex's room, 2442, the sight she beholds is, the room is suddenly splattered with blood, utterly gruesome. There's even the corpse of a woman in red hanging from the ceiling fan. Swaying gently, the woman recoils in terror, quickly turning away, apologizing profusely to Alex. She doesn't dare look inside again, not even for a second. Just like that, she hurries away without looking back. Not thinking too much of it, Alex goes downstairs alone to find something to eat. Around the corner in the building is a simple, rundown eatery. Its sign reads Rice Shop. The heroic Taoist from earlier today is actually the owner of this shop, known as Rick. Alex watches as Rick, muttering to himself, points at an empty table, apparently recounting an order, then sharply scolds a waiter who talked back, sending him away. He then goes to the stove himself and starts stir-frying glutinous rice. Sticky rice, repels evil, brings luck. He portions out to bowls, explaining one is for the living, the other for the deceased. After the waiter serves one bowl to the listlessly sitting Alex, Rick walks over to an empty spot in the opposite corner, respectfully placing the steaming bowl of rice on the floor. He slowly lights a cigarette and places it beside the bowl. Rick then warmly greets another regular customer, Aunt May. He seems completely unfazed by the faint, blurry figure sitting in that empty spot, visible within the smoke of his cigarette. He simply murmurs, "Eat up, so you can move on," then turns and walks away. At this point, Aunt May carries her own bowl over to Alex's table and sits down slowly. She kindly encourages Alex to try Rick's cooking. The waiter comes over too, smilingly, praising Aunt May for being a kind soul, saying she often helps neighbors mend clothes for free, and even helps babysit children. The kind Aunt May even offers to help Alex with any mending needs. However, her next sentence carries a concerned warning, reminding Alex that his room, 2442, is considered unlucky after the dinner rush. Rick sits down with Alex, hearing Alex praise his cooking skills. Rick just gives a non-committal smile. He says, "What does it matter how well the sticky rice is?" His family for 3 generations has dealt with sticky rice, using it to expel evil spirits, exorcist demons, and subdue ghosts. The shop is called the Rice Shop, and he himself is a Taoist priest. This is a legacy passed down through generations. But in his generation, he laments there are no more Jiangshi. So what's the need for Taoist priest? Let me explain Jiangshi quickly. Often called hopping vampires, or Chinese zombies in the West, they're unique undead creatures from folklore, typically reanimated by Taoist magic, known for rigidity and needing life force. Rick continues, he can only name his shop Rice Shop, turning the sticky rice meant for exorcism into mere fried rice to sell. His words are filled with the melancholy of untapped potential born in the wrong era. Alex sincerely thanks Rick for saving his life earlier that day. Rick just smiles faintly, seemingly seeing through Alex's desire to die. He only replies, "If fate brings us together again later, it won't be too late for thanks then." Back in her apartment, and May asks her husband, George, to try on the clothes she just altered. But George is a grumpy old man, always suspicious. Thinking everyone has ill intentions, he starts shouting curses at Aunt May. Aunt May looks at this old man she spent her life with, his temper like a child's, and just smiles wordlessly, resignedly. One loves to make noise, the other loves to smile. They've spent most of their lives together like this. In the evening, George goes downstairs to take out the trash. He suddenly hears the faint, eerie laughter of a little boy in the stairwell. George immediately stops in his tracks. He walks to the edge of the stairs and leans over. Peering down, George vaguely sees in the damp corner below a little boy squatting with his back to him. Puzzled, George is about to go down to investigate, but suddenly his foot slips. He loses his balance and tumbles down the stairs. As he rolls down, his neck is severely injured by the hard edge of a step, falling continuously. His face is ultimately disfigured, dying tragically at the bottom of the stairs. Aunt May has a very surreal dream about her husband. Waking up, she senses her husband visited her in the dream, trying to tell her something. She eventually, horrifyingly, discovers George's cold body, instantly distraught and helpless. Aunt May seeks out the mysterious man in black she met near Alex's apartment yesterday. The one who performs rituals and tells fortunes at a temple, Ken. She clearly wants to use Ken's knowledge of Taoist magic to try and save her beloved husband. Sure enough, following Ken's instructions, Aunt May buys a large quantity of dead sea fish and piles them in her home. The smell of decay attracts flocks of crows outside the window. Cawing incessantly, she even cruelly drives away the white-haired boy, Danny, whom she usually cared for. She tells Danny never to come to her home again. It turns out, all this is part of a dark ritual Ken taught Aunt May. First, select the most negative energy location possible to nurture this ominous setup filled with decay. Then, use crow's blood, an extremely yin substance, continuously dripping it onto a bagua mirror placed over George's heart. The potent energy of the crow's blood causes intense negative energy to gather at George's heart. Next, use a special coffin made of yin wood to enclose the body and suspend it, keeping the body buried but not touching the earth, maintaining a faint semblance of breath within. Unable to enter or exit, coordinate this with Taoist seals and special purple talismans to suppress the corpse, then burn talismans to refine the corpse, continuing until it no longer seeps fluids. Finally, use the practitioner's own blood mixed with peachwood essence, dripping it into the mouth of the corpse placeholder. This completes a simplified but extremely dangerous version of the soul-borrowing reanimation technique from Maotian Taoist sorcery. Placing a special mask made of copper coins over George's face, Ken repeatedly warns Aunt May. Under no circumstances should she remove the mask before the ritual is complete. He continues to deceive the grief-stricken Aunt May, assuring her that within 7 days, on the 7th day after George's death, known as the Qi or the crucial first 7 days in Chinese tradition, he will definitely return. Afterward, Ken, whose intentions are clearly sinister, suddenly starts to struggle violently in his own room. Writhing in pain, he stumbles into a dimly lit back room, but this room, instead of a proper altar, is filled with numerous jars and containers holding unknown substances. Definitely not the setup of an orthodox practitioner. Ken takes some strange powder from a jar. Muttering incantations, he rolls the powder into a cigarette and inhales deeply. After smoking it, Ken visibly relaxes, finding relief, but disturbingly, within the smoke he exhales. The faint silhouette of an infant can be seen. One can only imagine the horrific, taboo origin of that powder, likely related to infant spirits, a truly dark form of magic. Meanwhile, Danny, the white-haired boy driven away by Aunt May, runs into Alex's apartment to hide. The child, wearing Alex's sunglasses, playfully runs out again. Alex, tidying up, inadvertently discovers a sketchbook Danny left behind. But the drawings inside are not the beautiful creations of an innocent child. Instead, they are page after page of terrifying and bizarre doodles. Among them is a clear depiction of a woman in red hanging herself. Following clues from the drawings, Alex finds Danny and his mother, Anna, where they are hiding. Just as he's about to ask about the drawings, he notices the mother and son pressed fearfully against the wall. Anna is even covering Danny's eyes tightly with her hand, preventing him from seeing something. At that moment, the lights in the hallway flicker erratically, and a faint singing voice drifts from afar. Alex follows the ghostly singing. At the end of the long corridor, bizarre figures slowly approach. These figures are unnaturally tall and thin. Their bodies wrapped in tattered rags, they carry broken paper umbrellas, and their faces are completely obscured by cloth, taking heavy, stiff steps. They advance steadily towards Alex, Anna, and Danny, seeing the distinct, cold black footprints they leave on the floor. Even someone completely unfamiliar with the supernatural understands these are not friendly entities, likely spirits passing through from the underworld. Sometimes called Yinping Ji Dao, or ghostly soldiers passing, Alex quickly mimics Anna, pressing himself tightly against the wall, holding his breath, respectfully clearing the path. The four figures in ancient attire walk slowly, silently past the three of them. Only after they've passed do the living dare to breathe deeply again. Thinking about it, this isn't a normal corridor for people. It's clearly a passageway to the underworld. Despite the terrifying encounter, Alex, concerned, still follows Anna and Danny upstairs. This floor of the building is in ruins, with rusty reinforcing bars sticking out everywhere, clearly not a place for living. Following Anna's guidance step by step, Alex enters a room filled with tangled electrical wires and strange graffiti. The wire-filled room makes it difficult to even walk. Yet in this dilapidated space, A small coffee table and a makeshift bed have been placed, just as Alex carefully approaches the bed. While Anna remains highly alert, Owen arrives, carrying some food. It turns out Mr. Owen, in his 70s, couldn't bear to see the mother and son evicted. So he's been secretly sheltering them in this abandoned part of the building. Through Mr. Owen's explanation, Alex learns more details about the past tragedy in apartment 2442 years ago. Apartment 2442 was home to a happy family. The wife Anna, young son Danny, and her husband. Anna's husband appeared to be a gentle, respectable teacher. However, among the students who came for tutoring were a pair of beautiful twin sisters. This tempted the husband beyond his control. One day, he forcibly pushed the younger twin onto a table, attempting to assault her. As the girl struggled desperately, the husband, ruthless and cruel, stabbed her hand with a fruit knife, pinning it to the table. Amidst the girl's piercing screams, he began his assault. Fortunately, the older twin sister discovered the situation. She snuck up behind the husband and stabbed him fiercely in the chest with a pair of fruit scissors. Regardless of the husband's struggles, the sister resolutely plunged the blade in again and again. Blood splattered everywhere, staining the entire room, even Danny's crib. But because the sister stabbed him repeatedly from behind with such force, the blade, after passing through the husband, also deeply pierced her own abdomen, tragically killing her as well. The surviving younger sister couldn't bear the trauma of the assault and witnessing her sister's horrific death. With blood dripping from her injured hand and between her legs, she ultimately chose to hang herself in the room. Poor Anna, returning home from work to this hellish scene, was completely unable to process the horror, the shock instantly shattering her mind, causing a mental breakdown. And so, for several years, Anna, her mental state fluctuating, would return daily to that cursed room like a wandering spirit. Though terrified by the twin ghost haunting the space with every visit, she found herself compulsively drawn back day after day. She raised Danny alone in the building's humble electrical room. Hearing this story, even the stoic Alex couldn't help but feel deep sympathy for Anna and Danny's plight. Back in her own apartment, May sits forlornly, like a ghost herself. Having lost her lifelong partner, she seems like an empty shell, lost in memories. Remembering all her past moments with her husband, she's suddenly startled by a loud, heavy thud. It was the coffin she had prepared for her husband, somehow falling from where it was suspended. Without a second thought, Aunt May, now seemingly possessed by her grief, struggles to lift George's body out of the coffin, her mind broken. She impulsively dresses the cold corpse in the Jiangxi movie costume Alex had left hanging outside. Just like that, she circles around the lifeless body of George, dressed in the costume. As if speaking to a living person, she murmurs about daily life, reminiscing about their past. A whirlwind of emotions washes over her: joy, anger, sorrow, happiness. One moment she's weeping bitterly, the next she's smiling strangely. Her words filled with deep love and reluctance to part with her husband. As the camera slowly zooms in, George's face, covered in wounds, pale and terrifyingly lifeless, is revealed. Perhaps, truly hearing his wife's desperate calls, George's dull, grayish-white eyes slowly, unnervingly open. After finishing his workday, Rick returns to his rice shop home when the ancestral peachwood sword, once used for exorcism, can now only serve as a mundane back scratcher. When the sacred Bagua mirror, meant to ward off evil, is now just used for shaving, Rick, feeling obsolete and lost, seems to find companionship only with the faint ghost reflected in his mirror. He invites Alex, who just arrived at the door, to sit down and eat. Clearly, the extra four sets of untouched bowls and chopsticks on the table are meant for the original inhabitants of the apartment, who passed away long ago. As the old television turns on by itself and nostalgic music plays from the record player, Alex can't help but feel a sense of unease and dread. Rick just laughs self-deprecatingly, saying he's merely a guest in this house too. After he passes away, he'll become one of them, the ghost. He adds that having these old neighbors around isn't actually that lonely. Alex remains silent for a moment, then finally states his true purpose for visiting. He hopes Rick, as a fellow practitioner, will help deal with the extremely powerful twin ghost in apartment 2442. Rick doesn't answer directly. Instead, he points to the dusty Bagua trigram compass hanging on the wall behind him and starts recounting the past. He says, in older times, the world's spiritual energy was stronger. Strange occurrences were common in the countryside. His own father, also a Taoist priest, traveled constantly between remote villages, exorcising evil spirits for people, and time and again, his father had to humbly ask neighbors to look after young Rick. Being a Taoist priest sounds romantic, traveling freely. But the reality, Rick says, is being rootless, constantly wandering, especially for priests like them from the Shan lineage. a branch of Taoist magic focused on exorcism and combat. Their path inherently involves great danger, until one day, Rick's father brought him to this very room. His father left after giving some instructions and never returned. Alex looks at Rick, this last master of a dying art. Lamenting being born in the wrong era, he silently hands Rick the drawing Danny made earlier, the one clearly depicting a woman in red hanging. Surprisingly, Rick is still unwilling to help. He states that saving Alex last time was already going above and beyond, using the opportunity of offering Alex a drink. Rick suddenly grabs the watch on Alex's wrist. He says, if you can't let go, you just can't. Instead of meddling in others' affairs, better take care of yourself first. Annoyed, Alex retorts back immediately, what about you? You have the ability to help, yet you choose not to. If you've truly let go, why do you still keep all these ritual items your father left behind? About to leave in frustration, Alex suddenly recalls Rick's parting words from earlier. Rick had mentioned that people are good or evil and talismans have different powers. The darker the color of the talisman paper, the stronger the power of the ritual method it represents. And Jifa restriction methods are inherently dark Taoist techniques, leaving no room for others and no room for oneself. Things might not be as simple as they seem. Sure enough, just as Alex steps through his own doorway, a bucket of prepared crow's blood is dumped over him, soaking him completely. The evil practitioner, Ken, ambushes him at this critical moment, grabbing Alex by the neck. He slaps a purple talisman onto Alex's forehead and begins chanting a wicked incantation. Under the spell's power, transmitted through the talisman, Alex sees the truth of apartment 20/40 pass for the first time. In this seemingly empty living room, two female ghosts suddenly appear out of thin air, covered in red threads, unable to break free. These must be the twin sisters who died tragically in this room. This time, the ghosts, they immediately possess Alex's body. Possessed by the twin powerful ghost, Alex seems to gain immense power instantly. He rips the talisman off his forehead and turns to fight Ken. Empowered by the possessing spirits, Alex becomes incredibly agile and strong. Within just a few moves, he pummels Ken, causing him to vomit blood repeatedly. Unable to fight back, seeing he can't subdue the possessed Alex physically, Ken prepares to use a more powerful technique, using his own blood as ink and his hand as a talisman. But the spells he cast hit Alex's body and dissipate harmlessly, like stones sinking into the sea. At this crucial moment, Rick, who had been monitoring the situation downstairs, rushes into the room. Just as Rick is grabbed by the neck and in mortal danger, Ken and Rick combine their powers, unleashing the Taoist palm lightning technique. For the first time, they manage to repel the possessed Alex, successfully forcing the twin ghost out of his body temporarily. Just as the two priests are about to combine forces to completely exorcise the spirits, the treacherous Ken, while Rick is occupied, secretly retreats deeper into the room, then deliberately uses a lit match to create a distraction, drawing Rick's attention. This gives the twin ghost a perfect opportunity to ambush Rick. Meanwhile, Ken calmly bites his own finger, dripping blood onto a prepared ball of thread. Using this blood-infused magic thread, he ensnares one of the ghosts attacking Rick, forcefully drags it into the back room. Rick, having just gotten back on his feet, is immediately jumped by the other ghost, landing on his back in desperation. Rick quickly takes out his own red thread soaked in his blood. He wraps the blood thread around the ghost on top of him, then uses a powerful shoulder throw to fling the ghost away violently. The battle reaches its climax. Ken and Rick act simultaneously, forcing the two ghosts they've each entangled together. Combining their efforts, using the power of yang, energy, and the blood threads, they finally manage to overpower the twin spirits. They struggle to force the combined entity into a prepared wooden cabinet. Alex also recovers enough to help, finally trapping the vicious ghost. Having survived the ordeal, Ken expresses thanks to Rick, mixed with a hint of envy. Rick, without a word, slaps Ken hard across the face. He curses Ken for being treacherous, using Alex's life as bait to lure the ghost out. Ken, knowing Rick despises him and his methods, doesn't argue. He simply says he'll handle the ghost, then takes the cabinet, containing the spirits, back to his own place alone. However, his wicked intentions remain. Ken doesn't destroy the ghost, merely sealing the cabinet door with black dog blood, a traditional repellent containing them for his own purposes. Alex, after surviving this possession, finally confirms the truth about his past abandonment through Ken's dark magic. He seems to finally accept the fact that he was indeed an abandoned child. The next day, encouraged by Alex and Mr. Owen, Anna, her mental state slightly improved, finally musters the courage to return to the place of her nightmares, apartment 2442. Hearing her son Danny's calls from inside, she steps trembling through the doorway once more. Alex, having lost his own wife and child, deeply understands her pain. He decides to stay and accompany Anna and Danny. living together in this apartment filled with sad memories, trying to start anew. But while ghosts can be expelled, dramatic memories cannot. The deep wounds in Anna's heart cannot be simply healed. By exorcism, Alex decides to remove all the remaining old furniture from the apartment, hoping to make the space feel less haunted, easing Anna's mind at the same time. He fixes Danny's broken bicycle, he plays with the boy, washes his hair, trying to bring normalcy back into their lives. As if everything is slowly returning to normal, one day, Rick is tending his shop. He keeps noticing a strange smell emanating from several neighbors who come in. It seems the odor comes from their clothes. Looking closely at the newly patched areas on their garments, Rick immediately thinks of Aunt May, who is skilled with needlework. After asking around, and everyone confirming they haven't seen Aunt May's husband George for many days, Rick sits down beside Mr. Owen and asks him quietly. Indeed, secrets cannot be kept forever in this closed-knit building. According to Mr. Owen, it was Anna, who often wandered the building's corridors in her disturbed state, who one day unintentionally witnessed the truth of George's death. Anna had rambled incoherently that George was killed by a man followed by many children. Rick scolds Mr. Owen for believing nonsense, saying besides Danny, where would all these children come from in this building? However, Owen silently takes out the gold tooth he found at the scene back then. Everyone knows this was George's most valuable possession, his gold filling. Suddenly, everyone hearing this falls into silence, unable to sit still any longer. Aunt May goes to find Ken again. She tells him frantically that every night at 11 p.m., George's body in the coffin opens its eyes, and during the day, the corpse constantly bangs against the coffin lid. She desperately asks Ken when her husband will truly come back. Looking at the clearly unstable Aunt May, Ken, cornered and impatient, snaps angrily. He says, only the fresh blood of a young boy can bring your husband back. Can you afford that? Just then, there's a knock on the door. It's Mr. Owen, following up on a neighbor's complaint downstairs, saying Ken's apartment often has sounds of children crying late at night, so he came to check. Ken initially tries to refuse entry and close the door, but Mr. Owen pushes the door open forcefully. Spotting Aunt May inside, he then enters the apartment naturally. As he walks step by step towards Aunt May, Owen subtly drops the candies he had prepared in his pocket onto the floor. After some brief, tense pleasantries, Aunt May gets up and leaves. Now, in the quiet room, Ken, Owen, and presumably Ken's hidden helpers all clearly hear from a dark corner the sound of a child secretly unwrapping candy and giggling. Instantly, the air in the room becomes heavy, almost suffocating, slowly lighting a cigarette. Owen now understands the truth about George's demise. He tries earnestly to persuade Ken to stop his dark practices. When persuasion fails, Mr. Owen directly pulls out the gold tooth, demanding to know where Ken has hidden George's body. Suddenly, Aunt May sneaks back and quietly behind Mr. Owen. She picks up a heavy copper pot and strikes Mr. Owen down from behind. She even climbs onto his body, striking him again and again, brutally murdering him. At this point, Aunt May has completely succumbed to madness, driven solely by the obsession to resurrect her husband. She has abandoned all reason and morality. Later, Aunt May, back in her apartment, hears a knock on her door. It's Rick, bringing Danny over. Rick, suspicious due to the strange smell on the neighbor's clothes, uses the excuse of bringing Danny over to probe the situation. Under Rick's subtle instruction, Danny runs directly into Aunt May's apartment. Rick had intended to use the moment the door opened to quickly scan the room for anything unusual, but Rick could never have imagined it was his own action that sent the innocent Danny directly into the tiger's mouth. Sure enough, when Danny innocently asks to use the bathroom, Aunt May immediately recalls Ken's words about needing young boy's blood for the ritual. So, expressionlessly, she leads Danny step by step into the bathroom. But the moment they enter, Danny sees the horrifying scene inside. Likely George's reanimating corpse in Mr. Owen's body, and starts crying loudly in terror. Aunt May, however, just blankly, silently closes the bathroom door. Danny's terrified cries abruptly stop, followed immediately by violent thuds and commotion from behind the closed door. Poor Aunt May, desperate to bring her husband back, ignored Ken's warning and removed the copper coin mask from the corpse. And worse, acted on Ken's manipulative words, personally causing the death of Danny, the child she initially cherished most, a corpse refined by dark magic, drenched in the pure blood of an innocent boy. This unholy combination of extreme yin and yang energies instantly causes Rick's Taoist compass to spin wildly. Rick senses immense danger, realizing what's emerging is far more than a simple vengeful ghost. Suddenly, thunder crashes and lightning flashes outside, despite the clear sky. When Rick rushes back to Aunt May's apartment, the door has already been smashed open from the inside by immense force. The room inside is splattered everywhere with bloodstains, feeling the thick, sticky blood under his feet. Rick's scalp tingles with dread, because inside, apart from the shocking red, he can see nothing else. Suddenly, an icy hand grabs Rick, pulling him into a corner, clamping over his mouth and nose. At that moment, a figure in black traditional Qing Dynasty official robes leaps silently behind him. The figure pauses briefly, then leaps eerily out of the room again. Without needing a clear look, Rick knows instantly. This is the Jiangshi, the reanimated hopping corpse, a creature his family has fought for generations. It turns out Ken had appeared just in time to cover Rick's mouth and nose, protecting him from the corpse's deadly breath. Ken himself had evidently fought the newly formed Jiangshi earlier. Now, he's gravely injured, bitten by the Jiangshi, nearing death as the saying goes. A dying man's words are true. Ken reveals he had terminal lung cancer, his days numbered, so he resorted to dark magic, using the ashes of Yang Shaogui, raised minor demons or spirits to forcibly extend his own life. That night, George had unintentionally seen the small spirits following Ken downstairs, which caused him to stumble and fall down the stairs accidentally. Ken pretended to help George upstairs, but George woke up unexpectedly, saw Ken beside him, and thought Ken meant to harm him. In the ensuing struggle, Ken accidentally pushed George down the stairs again, leading to his tragic death, and the twin ghosts previously sealed in the cabinet in apartment 2442 were different from ordinary spirits, much more powerful. Ken believed they could help him perform the Ji Yin Wan Yang ritual, borrowing Yin energy to return to life, granting him more lifespan. That's why he deceived Aunt May into preparing George's body as a vessel, planning to capture the twin ghosts later, and use George's corpse to house their powerful spirits. But the grief-maddened Aunt May ignored his warnings, removed the mask, and worse, acted on Ken's unintentional suggestion about needing young boy's blood, delivering Danny right to the corpse. Through a series of tragic mistakes and coincidences, she committed a terrible error, creating a true, incredibly ferocious Jiangshi. Anna, having not seen Danny for a while, worries about his whereabouts. She wanders the building, ringing a small brass bell, an item sometimes used in rituals to find or guide spirits. Searching frantically, she inadvertently discovers the cabinet in Ken's apartment emitting strange noises. Quietly approaching the cabinet, Anna has no idea what kind of powerful entities are sealed inside. Thinking only that her son Danny might be trapped within, she smashes the lock on the cabinet door without hesitation. The cabinet doors then slowly swing open from the inside. The two powerful ghosts are finally freed, seeing daylight again. They follow the unsuspecting Anna step by step out of the room, united. The twin sisters possess immense power, freed from their confinement. The ghosts are like fish returned to the sea, free to roam and cause havoc. Unable to find her son, Anna finally collapses on the floor in anguish. Suddenly, she sees her son's figure at the end of the hallway and happily rushes towards him. But the next second, under the dim light, she sees Danny's almost transparent, ethereal ghostly form. Anna finally understands the devastating truth. Her son is dead, now a ghost. Overwhelmed by the pain of losing her son, Anna loses her only hope for living. She deliberately uses the scent of her own fresh blood as bait, drawing the Jiangshi that killed her son towards her, preparing to avenge him with her own life. One desperate mother, one ferocious corpse. Face off directly, Anna swings a rake fiercely, striking the Jiangshi's face. But it has absolutely no effect. The Jiangshi reacts instantly, swatting Anna away, sending her crashing through a wall. Both stumble and fall into the elevator shaft. The Jiangshi, impervious to normal weapons, easily throws Anna aside again. It then leaps behind her with unnatural speed, its claws grabbing her, and effortlessly, it pierces Anna's chest with one hand. At the critical moment, Alex arrives just in time. He throws a lit bottle of alcohol like a Molotov cocktail directly at the Jiangshi. But the Jiangshi, refined with boy's blood, is already immune to fire and water. Impenetrable by ordinary means, just as it lunges towards Alex instinctively dodges backwards, causing the Jiangshi to crash into a large pile of rice sacks. Massive amounts of glutinous sticky rice, traditionally believed to counter Jiangshi, instantly buried the creature, temporarily immobilizing and suppressing it. But just then, the twin ghosts, attracted by the strong scent of blood, arrive on the scene. The Jiangshi possesses a soul core but lacks a spirit, a distinction in Chinese spiritual beliefs between core consciousness and will. While the ghosts have spirit but no soul core, realizing this powerful Jiangshi body is the perfect vessel for them, the twin ghosts don't hesitate. They instantly merge into the Jiangshi's body. At this point, soul and spirit combine, extreme yin and extreme evil merge. The creature before them is no longer just an ordinary Jiangshi, it's a terrifying hybrid entity, combining the Jiangshi's toughness with the twin ghost intelligence and malevolence. The monster moves with unimaginable speed. It leaps up, grabs onto an iron bar on the ceiling, and in a single, devastating move impales Alex through the abdomen. Alex is left brutally pinned to the floor, bleeding profusely, unable to move. In agony, he manages to tear himself free from the impalement, escaping the immediate hold. The situation is now completely out of control. Rick, despite his injuries, decides to don his Taoist robes one last time. Taking up his ancestral duty, he retrieves the long-lost family heirloom, the Bagwood trigram copper gong compass. Alex, running on fumes, drags himself to the corridor entrance. He tells Rick the worst has happened, seeking revenge. Alex asks Rick to perform a forbidden ritual, a Taoist technique to temporarily sustain his life force, allowing him one last battle against the monster. Looking at Alex, who arrived seeking death but now fights fiercely for vengeance, Rick hesitates no longer. He uses Alex's blood as ink for talismans, covering his body to boost his power, then uses the blood spilled in the corridor as a medium to draw a large containment array. Simultaneously, he tells Alex he only has the time it takes for one cigarette to burn down. If the Jiangshi isn't dealt with by then, the array will fail, and everyone will die. The next second, as the ritual activates, the world around them plunges into darkness. The array boundary is sealed. Rick, outside the barrier, presses his hand firmly onto the ancient Bagua compass, the Jiangshi ghost hybrid monster. Sensing the power, charges forward with incredible ferocity. One man empowered by ritual, one corpse fused with vengeful spirits, one righteous, one evil, face off in the final showdown. As Rick's fingers slowly turn the compass, dripping his own blood onto it, the array's power surges, time itself seeming to warp within the barrier, just as they are about to collide. Rick activates the water element of the array, but clearly, the water barrier alone is useless against this monster. They clash violently. Alex, even enhanced, is no match for the creature's power. Being brutally beaten, Rick, outside and anxious, quickly shifts the array, activating the wood element instantly. Countless tough vines erupt from the walls, binding and restraining the monster. Alex seizes the opportunity, striking the creature repeatedly, but during a moment's hesitation, the monster breaks free again, grabbing Alex in a death grip. Just as the monster lifts Alex high, preparing to smash him to death, Rick activates the earth element. The hard floor instantly turns into thick, trapping mud. Like cement, Alex uses this momentary advantage to escape the monster's grasp. They begin the second round of their desperate fight, but outside, Rick is paying a heavy price for rapidly manipulating the array's power. His 5 fingers, once placed on the compass to activate the ritual, cannot leave as the Bagua compass spins violently under the strain. Rick's own arm is gruesomely twisted and broken, seeing Alex struggling to harm the creature. Rick throws his last weapon, the peachwood sword. Alex catches it, preparing for a final strike. Rick also uses his remaining blood thread to bind the monster again, trying to hold it. Time is running out. The cigarette burns low. Rick activates the metal element, just as the sun begins to rise outside, bringing the dawn. Watching Alex's attack still proving ineffective against the combined entity, Rick makes the ultimate sacrifice without hesitation. He forces himself through the barrier wall. Leaping inside, he uses the blood thread to tie himself, Alex, and the monster together, then jumps from the high-rise building. As the bright morning sun shines fully, the Bagua compass finally aligns with the fire element, the last seal, utilizing the combined power of pure sunlight and the rays. Fire, the terrifying monster is finally destroyed, disintegrated, falling hard onto the ground below. Aunt May, having survived but lost her mind, looks at the terrible consequences of her actions, and at the pile of ashes that was once her husband. Aunt May looks blankly at the beloved glass marble Danny left behind, then uses a sharp shard to end her own life. Rick, having miraculously survived the fall, slowly lights a final cigarette, but this time exhausted and perhaps at his own end. He can't take a second puff. Silently watching the distance, Alex looks up at the sky, imagining white snowflakes falling. Remembering Danny asking if it ever snows in Hong Kong, everything he experienced flashes rapidly before his eyes again. What if he had never become a famous movie star in the first place? What if Rick was just a lazy cook in a rundown diner? What if Mr. Owen was just a sleepy security guard? What if Anna and Danny were just a sweet, ordinary mother and son living happily? What if Aunt May was just a lonely widow who had lost her husband long ago? What if it was Rick who discovered him, Alex, already dead by hanging in room 2442? What if Ken was just an unpleasant mortician? What if the people who came to collect his body were his own grown-up son? Wouldn't that have been better? Perhaps preventing so much tragedy and regret. End of story. So, was Rigor Mortis just a love letter to a bygone era of Hong Kong cinema? Or did director Juno Mack hide something deeper beneath that nostalgic shell? This is undeniably one of the most thought-provoking Chinese-language horror films in recent memory, breathing new life into old themes, right? Many worry that blending a new director with a Japanese horror master like producer Takashi Shimizu, the genius behind Ju-on, The Grudge, might result in a confused mess. But Rigor Mortis powerfully proves them wrong, wouldn't you agree? Let's decode the cultural codes and mourning embedded within. The film is saturated with classic Hong Kong jiangshi movie elements, the sticky rice, red strings, peachwood swords, bagua mirrors, invoking memories of legends like Lam Ching Ying. But did you notice how these traditional tools often feel, well, powerless here? Rick's Taoist skills seem more like remnants of a fading tradition than effective defenses. Can dark arts twist these traditions into something sinister? Is the film suggesting that the era of jiangshi culture, and perhaps the traditional spiritual power it represented, has decayed, much like the crumbling apartment building itself? Think about the characters. Alex, the washed-up actor, Rick, the last Taoist, Ken, the desperate sorcerer, Aunt May and George, the aging couple stuck in the past. Even the building feels like a ghost of its former self. This heavy sense of decay isn't just for atmosphere. You feel it to write. It feels like a profound elegy for a lost golden age and its cultural echoes. And the visual style and directing language, it's incredibly distinctive. Gino Mack crafts an atmosphere of suffocating despair that's hard to shake. How does he achieve this? A key element is the highly stylized visual palette dominated by cold, desaturated colors, mostly grays, blues, and blacks, paired with heavy shadows and low-key lighting. This creates a world almost devoid of life and hope. Notice the camera work too, often slow. Deliberate movements or static shots emphasize the oppressive stillness and sense of doom. Contrasting sharply with the frantic action of older jiangshi films, the designs for the ghosts and the final jiangshi hybrid are also fascinating, blending traditional imagery with modern effects. Those twin ghosts bound in red silk are nightmare fuel, weren't they? How did this extreme visual style impact your viewing? Did it enhance the horror, or did it create a sense of artistic distance for you? Finally, let's explore the themes: obsession, despair, and reality. At its core, this film seems obsessed with obsession itself, doesn't it? Alex's obsession with his past glory, Aunt May's desperate obsession to resurrect her husband, Ken's obsession with prolonging his life, even the twin ghost's obsession with revenge. All these obsessions trap them in a cycle of darkness within the decaying building, which itself feels like a container for despair. This leads us to that ending, that ambiguous gut punch. What was real? What was imagined? Many viewers debate whether the entire supernatural ordeal was just Alex's dying fantasy. But as some point out, if it was all fake, how could Alex imagine Ken, whom he'd supposedly never met? Perhaps the line between reality and hallucination, much like the film's visuals, is meant to be blurred. Is the director suggesting that when consumed by despair and obsession, the boundary doesn't even matter anymore? Or maybe, just maybe, that final what-if sequence is the only redemption Alex could find, a self-created peace in his final moments. What's your take on this haunting ending? Which reality feels more true to you? Rigor Mortis stands as a powerful, if bleak, masterpiece, using the ghost and jiangshi genre to explore profound themes of loss, regret, and the weight of the past. It masterfully blends chilling horror with deep emotional resonance through its stunning visuals and atmospheric storytelling. But what do you think? Which character's obsession resonated most with you? Aunt May's desperate love, Alex's longing for bygone fame, or Ken's fear of death? And regarding that ambiguous ending, do you believe Alex truly experienced the supernatural horrors, or was it all a final fantasy? Let me know your interpretations in the comments below. And looking at young Danny, surviving amidst such darkness, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? Could this bleak beginning forge a future ghost hunter? Perhaps someone like Kai from Keeper of Darkness? Just some food for thought for our dedicated explorers. Thanks for joining me, Drammy, on Dramagico today. If you found value in this deep dive, consider liking and subscribing for more explorations into the art behind the scare. Until next time, keep watching, keep thinking. Leave a comment and share your thoughts. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm Drammy. See you in the next video. Bye.